Sonia. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. Um, what's happening exciting in your world?
What's happening exciting in my world? Not much, which is good.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, that's good. That's good for sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Cool, cool. Well, let's hop into this bad boy. We are going to talk about something that I know that you want to talk about. Yeah. So, let's talk about, well, let's use the shoulder as a way to look at the kind of DIY trap failure, right? So, what happens is people have pain and then they go to Dr. AI or Dr. Google, and if you're really kind of on top of stuff, you go to YouTube or you go to Instagram or, uh, TikTok or wherever people go. And now they're trying to figure out, like, why does my shoulder hurt and all the rest of these things. Um, but I find that the problem becomes that they don't really understand how to assess the problem itself, right? And so when they don't understand how to assess the problem, then what winds up happening is that they have a million random ideas that they're trying. And most likely not giving any one of them a fair enough shake, right? So
Yeah.
I believe that while you should see improvement relatively quickly, it's going to take a little while oftentimes, particularly if the injury or the pain has been going on for a while. It's going to take a little while for you to really kind of turn the corner and see the benefit. Um, and so what happens is a lot of people what they do is they'll give it, like, in their head they're trying something, but they're really not, because they don't really have a program to follow, right? And then they get advice from their Uber driver and their DoorDash guy and the guy at the coffee shop, and then somebody that cuts their hair, and somebody's dog's mom's best friend's grandma's sister's brother. All of these things where um, they're not getting, like, real consistent information, and information that uh, from people who understand what's going on. Just because you went through a PT program doesn't mean that you know what the hell's going on. you know, like,
Right.
so. So the the tough part about it is that um, yeah, I mean, they just don't have a real direction of things. And then the other problem is that most of us are trying to stretch or release our shoulder because for the last, we'll say, 40 years, that's what's been shoved down our throats. You know, stretch the back of your shoulder. Oh, do this one. And by the way, I've given all of those things out. I've suggested all of the things to people, right? So I'm just as guilty as the next person.
And all the foam rolling
Oh yeah,
and
yeah. Get all your gadgets out, your foam rollers and your massage guns and your strapping dynamite to your armpit and blowing your arm off and seeing what happens. I mean, all those things, right? That don't really, unfortunately, give us the results that we're looking for. And so, what we need to start to do is we need to start to, like, understand that we don't need to strength. We don't need to. It's not that your shoulder doesn't need more range of motion, because oftentimes it does. But the problem with the range of motion is that what is actually going on with the joint. So, when we look at range of motion, and if my shoulder is internally rotated this far, and I'm going to keep it there, that's about as far as I'm going to get. I can't get above my head because my shoulder can't come back and down and down.
Mhm.
And so, but this stretch here, while it feels good, it's not going to help you pull your shoulders back and down. And I don't care how many times your grandma or your aunt or your mom yells at you, you can't fix your posture by just pulling your shoulders back. If you could, then none of us would be in business, right?
Right.
And we also want to look at the result of that internal rotation left over years. And so, obviously when you get past 40 and you get probably more into your 60s and 70s, and you've got enough miles on the body, that internal rotation winds up impinging or pinching into the shoulder socket. And this is where you have all of your labrum tears, and then your shoulder reconstructive surgery. And then the labral tears are terrible. But you know what is the real little bastard of all of them? Spurs,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because then
Right.
that spur shaves on the back of your rotator cuff, and then now you got to go get rotator cuff surgery. And well, I believe that I believe hip surgery is pretty bad. Most of the time, I think that shoulder surgery is really tough. That's a tough recovery. That's a tough rehab. I've known a lot of people that have had shoulder surgery and I'm sorry, hip surgery, and we're just like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever.
Yep.
But shoulder surgery takes a long time to recover from. Um, it's not that the hip isn't a complex joint, because it is. It's just not as complex as the shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, like, you never get back the range of motion. Now, obviously, if you're bone on bone, super arthritic, like there's no chance left for you, by all means, go get the surgery. Like I had, now I'm trying to think of who it was. Oh yeah, I had so this is an interesting story. Um, no, he got hip surgery. He was a dentist. But I had someone else that I basically convinced to go get shoulder surgery because like their pain was just so bad and unmanageable. And after they got it, they were like, "Oh my gosh, this is so much better." Well, yeah, dummy. Like you're bone on bone, and your actual joint is inflamed. It's not tissue. It's not tendon. It's not ligament. Right? You can't come back from that. You can. It's just a long road, and you're only like there's certain times where I think that surgery or intervention like that is necessary. Like you're you're not going to exercise your way out of a torn labrum. I mean, it's just the chances. It's a tough injury, and then of course when you start to get bone on bone, or you start to fray those rotator cuff muscles, from the spur, and that's terrible. But yeah, so I think that we need to look at the implications of this internal rotation here in the shoulder. And then what are the things that we can do we need to be able to strengthen the muscles to bring it back. And those are oftentimes not very sexy, very low load. It's hard as hell.
Mm-hmm.
It's very humbling. Movements, so your external rotation, your power raise, your trap three, things like that, things that are bringing us back, along with this internal rotation from either profession or you know uh, as a species, we are predetermined to this
Mm-hmm.
because our spine moves so much better here than it does here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our shoulders move so much better here than they do back, right? And so it's easy for us to overdevelop this. And also, to be fair, this is all stuff that we can see,
Right.
right?
Yep.
So I had no idea what my rotator cuff muscles look like and how well or not well developed they are because I can't see them.
Right.
Right? I can't spin my head around and look down.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then now here's the other caveat to that. Oftentimes, especially in cases of neck, and we've discussed this a little bit way in the beginning of us doing this, or of me doing this and you hopping on with me. our forward head carriage is going to also dictate a lot of where our shoulders are, right?
Yep.
So if we're getting pulled, that forward head carriage is a big contributing factor as well. And so what winds up happening is as we get that forward head carriage, the shoulders round forward more. As the shoulders round forward more, our shoulder blade doesn't move well. And then we start to also become less able to move in our rib cage or in our thoracic spine or in our mid back. And that's that sometimes that can be all a part of the shoulder. And then sometimes it's also related to the relationship between the neck and the shoulder, right?
Yep.
So those things are important to take into consideration as well. And then, I also think that unless I had found no real reset for my shoulders until over the last 5 years and really working on strengthening them. And I remember being at a seminar or a CEU and a very well-known teacher saying, your shoulders are really internally rotated. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I've been doing massage for 12 years. I have a real good reason to keep my shoulders forward when I'm sparring because
Right.
I'm going to protect my melon, right?
Yep.
Like, I want to be able to bury my chin, right? So I got to protect that, right?
Right.
This is
Yeah.
no one ever talks hard like this, and there's a million uh, uh, there's a million videos of people getting knocked out with their head up, right?
Yeah.
And so I said, if you can fix it, do so. They didn't fix it because we were focused on none of the. Well, we were focused on trying to trick the brain into hijacking a little bit of the compensation pattern instead of just building strength in the damn posture and back of my shoulder, right? So, and like there's a lot of stuff that I'm starting to play around with more stuff now with my shoulders because by and large, my knees and my lower body feels pretty good. But like, I'm amazed that my left shoulder and my left shoulder separation wasn't like terrible. But the problem with it was that it was like an anterior. So the guy pulled on my arm back here like this, right? And so now I notice it when I do some kettlebell stuff, but now like you might be able to, yeah, right. This I right now currently I'm not able to get uh, my shoulder blade to really depress or kind of drop down because of some internal rotation. What I'm thinking to be internal rotation. I'm trying to find a place where, like if there's yeah. So if I'm way out here, it'll drop down. But when I get above my head more, like it doesn't want to do that. So sometimes we need to work on mobility, but the mobility has to be a little bit what a lot of people would think would be aggressive. But on my Instagram, I've been posting videos of me doing hanging cobras. So now I'm grabbing the bar and up here and hanging on it for like 30 seconds. to start to open up more thoracic extension, and then bring it's the tissue adaptation that we're looking for there,
Okay.
right? So, and then eventually, what I should be able to do is I should be able to do that and have good lumbar extension, thoracic extension, and then the requisite strength to do pull-ups like that, right? So I'm way far away from that. But those are the things that we want to, like, when people talk about mobility, crawling around on the ground like an animal is one form of mobility, but it doesn't scale. Or you need more time on the ground, which then we run into the same problem that we run into with yoga, right? And now, like, to be fair, if you look at a lot of the old Pilates method, like the stuff from Joseph Pilates, not like all of the offshooty stuff that has happened now, but the old stuff, there's a lot of upper body stuff that he had. And it's a lot of hanging and supported hanging, so it would be a form of regression. But that's because he was still around physical strength culture, and he was around boxers. People don't realize that he worked with a lot of boxers.
Yeah.
Right. So, and he was around the old physical strength culture, which had a lot of these things involved in it. Right. Because they didn't have super sexy machines. They just had things, they could only use certain things. And I mean, like, this is before like plates for barbells. You had barbells, but they were, they looked like the old Popeye barbells. And it's funny because there's a small segment of the fitness world that is coming back, that has come back around to that, some of that style of training. And when progressed well, right? When progressed well, it's pretty powerful stuff. But damn, you got to be patient with it, right? So, so yeah, that's my spiel on the shoulders. Do you have anything to add to that? Any questions? Anything?
Well, when my shoulders it's not injured right now. It healed up really quickly.
Yeah.
But what I realized was that, you're talking about you have to take your time, go slow, it's humbling, is that I had gone up in weight and I had gone up by 2 pounds, and 2 pounds was too much for my left shoulder. So I should have only gone up by 1 pound.
So here's what here's what my old coach used to say: 2 pounds is 2 pounds when it matters. 2 pounds when it's not heavy isn't heavy. 2 pounds when it's heavy is really heavy.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So yeah. So up until 2 weeks ago, I had never done external. I had never picked up 20 pounds to do external rotation with. Up until 2 weeks ago, I put in a ton of volume at 10 and 15 pounds, and 5 pounds in the beginning. I made a 5 pound plate look like it was like 150 pound plate, right? So yeah, you gotta be, because the thing that we want to think about is that tissue is so weak, and in that vulnerable position, in that full stretch position there, it's really it it has a high potential to get injured because we're going through range of motion, right?
Right.
2 pounds on 2 pounds on a dumbbell press like this may not be that much,
No,
and
it's not.
also
Yeah.
you don't have a lot of potential for injury there as well.
Yeah.
But 2 pounds in a fully exposed position, or 2 pounds when you're doing shoulder presses way down here, right? That's a lot of weight, right?
It was towel raise that was the real problem with the.
Yep. yeah, because you're way across the front of your body. Now, the to me, the power raise is a really interesting experiment in. I'll use these technical terms with you because you understand them with protraction and retraction of the scapula.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So it took me a while. Yeah,
Yeah, so
right.
you're supposed to be protracting and oh well, that's different because I was okay.
So yeah, if you don't show up again after this, I don't blame you because you're gonna go to the gym and go, that stupid Sean, right? Here I am back down to 0.5 pounds again, right?
Right.
Um,
Yes.
but yeah, but it took me a while before I had the stability to actually figure out one day after my 5 billionth rep of power raises, I went, oh, look, my shoulder goes out. Oh, shit. How do I get it back now? Oh, I got to kind of retract back now, right?
Uh-huh.
And so that's a real focus of mine for the power raise. Like I want to punch out when I'm doing them. I want to punch out and like think about not a straight line, right? On my eccentric, but punching out and kind of like reaching
Okay.
around,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. See, that was the problem is I was just letting it hang down
Yep,
and I
yep,
wasn't getting
yep,
that. Don't
yep,
get that. Can't get the retraction.
right,
You
right,
just your shoulder blade together.
yep, 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 yep,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So hey, but to be fair, you're not the only person, as you know now, that made that same mistake, right? But I also think some of it though is we need to build a level of strength before we can get to the thing,
Yep.
right?
Right.
So that's a skill acquisition and an adaptation phase that we need to have before we can get to the thing.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, man, is it frustrating and humbling?
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's like, man, why is this thing so weak? So in the way I have it set up in the collective, um, and I'm just taking this from Ben Patrick. Like there's certain percentages of your body weight that he got this from Charles Poliquin, um, that for um, structural balance, we want to be able to move certain percentages of our body weight,
Mm-hmm.
um, so that we're able to hold. We're built. We're building structural balance, and so with and they separate out men and women. I don't know that I would do that so much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think we spend enough time with the material, you can get because we're dealing with percentage of body weight, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 10% of your body weight is 10% of we're dealing with the same 10%, right? A guy that's 250 is still dealing with the same 10% that I am, right? So there's certain percentages that you want to you're trying to reach for and get to, but it takes a while to get the adaptation and the skill acquisition, and then the requisite strength to be able to do the thing. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, it it lower body stuff seems to come along a little quicker. It's,
Yeah.
because you've got the muscles that drive that engine are so much bigger,
Yeah.
right? Except for on tib with tib raises and things like that. That one comes along a lot slower
Mm-hmm.
than say like a calf raise,
Mm-hmm.
or like even like squats and or leg extensions or things like that. Um, but also you see that representative in the standards or the percentage of body weight that you want to move. For the load that you want to move based on the thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, it's it's an interesting experiment for sure. But when you start to be able to hit those numbers, when you start to like for you, when you start to creep up to 10, 12 pounds, which seems like a long ways away right now, but when you start to creep up to those 10, 12 pounds, I was still having a little bit of stuff in my shoulders. Uh, they were kind of like intermittent, depending on what we did in jiu-jitsu. And but now that I've gotten above 15 pounds in my external rotation, my shoulders actually feel better now
Okay.
than they did before, because I think that's just the strength that I'm gaining in them,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
now, one other thing to think about too is, so like for me, with my power blocks, I'll grab one of my power blocks, which is one of the dumbbells, and I'll talk to you about the frustrating part of the power block. So, um, and also how I kind of work around it a little bit. So, uh, the black is no, well, actually, the I can put 2.5 pound weights in here. So this is 5 pounds, 7.5 pounds, and then 10 pounds. Now there's a little insertion that goes in between here. That's 5 pounds. So now I go from 10 pounds to 15 pounds. And I don't have an option to go to 12 and a half or 12,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So one of the ways that you could start to work around, I'll just use like pressing overhead as an example, but it's the same regression. So let's pretend that you didn't have any other option than that. What you could do is say, okay, well, I'm going to get strong in this range of motion,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Oh, hey, look, I can do that down here now. Oh, great. All right, I'm going to get strong in this range of motion. I can get down here, but maybe I can only get down here for one or two, right?
Okay.
It's the same regression that you make on your split squat,
Okay.
right?
Got it.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Works.
And then that would apply to anything.
Okay.
So
Good.
when people they look at me like I've got 14 eyeballs and 3 heads on my shoulder when I say the same movements I would use with one of the professional fighters at the gym, I would use with my 75-year-old aunt, whom I love dearly. Now, I'm not going to say my Aunt Kath could perform the movements at the same range of motion and intensity
Mm-hmm.
that Castaneda, who's going to fight in April 16th, 17th in the UFC, 17th in UFC, right? Professional fighter. But we would use the same movements. We would just adapt and modify the movements to meet my aunt or John wherever they're at. And that to me is the mark of a good, well thought out program. Right.
Yep.
And also, like, for me, like my goal is, man, I want to live 90 plus years old, right? That's what I want to do. And I want to be, barring cancer or Alzheimer's, or uh, my heart blows up unforeseen, or a stroke or something that is just out of my control, right? Barring like the big four or whatever it is, right?
Right.
My goal is to be 90 plus, vibrant, active. And the best part about that is now I have 40 years to do that, 50 years, 40 years to do that, right? So wherever you're at, at 40 plus, wherever you're at, you can change a lot of things in 3 years. You can change a lot of things in 5 years. You can change a lot of things in 10 years, right? And each, to me, every time that you make those small adaptations, you're adding time to the clock, right?
Right.
The more capable you are, the less chance of you falling down and breaking your hip,
Right.
right?
Right. Yep.
Or falling down and not being able to get up off the floor,
Hmm.
right? So, so those to me, that's the reason I chase these things now,
Hmm.
right? Also, I want to be able to train jiu-jitsu and go, murder the whippersnappers in jiu-jitsu. But that in it, that also I'm adding time on that I can do that, because there's going to come a point in time where I'm no longer going to be able to do that. I'm just going to play 100% defense, right?
Right. Right.
But to me, that's the reason that, like, I want to chase after this idea and this ideal of making myself as strong and as mobile as I possibly can, because I or for me, like, in the event that Melissa and I get older and something happens to her and I've got to do stuff, like maybe she falls and I got to pick her up, right? Like,
Hmm.
I want to be able to do that for as long as I freaking possibly can, right?
Right.
So all of those things are reasons to chase this crazy weird idea, right?
Yep.
So, all right, Sonia, we've spent another 30 minutes. Uh,
Thanks. Very informative, helpful. Yeah.
Good. 29 and a half of them is me blabbing. So, yeah.
Good information. I
So,
just
real quick, as a recap, like, what occurred to you as new, or what did you take out of this conversation?
um well, to just not quit, first of all.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
That there's always a way to tweak something to
Yep.
make it doable and still
Yep.
do the thing,
Yep.
and that less is more, and it's really the little muscles that we need to focus on.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the reason I shot a video yesterday. I haven't uploaded it yet. I'll upload it tomorrow on my knee progress. Like, that's the reason I made that series, is so that in real time you guys can see this is how I'm adapting, my training.
Hmm.
Yesterday, off of one step. So one step is about a 2-inch riser, right? I did 40-pound split squats. I started off with two-step, on two-step, and my with 40 pounds, because my knee, I didn't feel anything really. I felt pretty good, but it was stiff. It didn't want to get into that full knee flexion. And so then I stayed 2 sets there, and by the end of the second set, it just kind of felt like it opened up and stuff broke free enough. And then my third set, I did off a one step riser, but again about 2 inches. So I was 4 inches, then 2 inches. And actually, my last set felt way better than my first set. But 3 weeks ago, I was on 3 steps with my PVC poles, just trying to get some range of motion in there, right? And so, like, unlike most of the time, as soon as I feel something's going on, when I'm listening to myself and not my ego, I will modify it back to a place where I can do it and then build upon that.
Hmm.
And probably in, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks, probably 3 or 4 weeks, I'm probably back down flat ground, split squatting 60 plus pounds again,
Hmm.
right? But I'm not afraid to go back, because I've got another 40 years to get better, right?
Right.
So, it's not really going backwards.
No.
It's
No.
it's it's just listening to your body and then building forward, you know.
Right. Yep.
So,
Totally.
okay. Well, Sonia, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you, Sean.
Yep. Anything that we need to chat about before we hop off here? Or are we good to go?
I think we're good to go.
All right. Thanks, Sonia. We'll see you next week.
See you
Yep.
next
Bye
week.
bye.